Starfield is an embarrassing mess of half-baked ideas, perpetually generated content that only amounts to endless walking while harvesting resources, a bombardment of loading screens in near immediate succession, skill tree paths with incredibly tedious and unclear unlock requirements followed by completely lackluster rewards, and I've gotta say, I absolutely love it. When the first installment of the Guardians of the Galaxy series came out, I thought that Star-Lord's character was so cool. The idea of a roguish, spacefaring gunslinger shooting, looting, and picking up chicks throughout the galaxy left me with a resounding fantasy that still to this day holds a grip on my mind. Banging aliens. In theory, Starfield should have been the perfect game to scratch this itch. The space stuff, not the alien fucking. However, my first playthrough felt a lot more like bad, boring Fallout in space. The biggest flaw of Starfield is that players will naturally play it like any other Bethesda game and compare all of its elements accordingly. And the path most players are going to walk will likely bring them to the conclusion that Starfield is just a bad Bethesda game, just like I first thought throughout my first playthrough. In order to express the roller coaster of quality I experienced in Starfield, I'm going to take you through my first playthrough, which should serve to make this video both a comprehensive critique and also a guide to enjoy this strangely framed space sim in the most efficient way possible. If you've clicked this video, it's likely because you already have a negative outlook on Todd Howard's latest disaster. However, my hope is that I can convince you to give Starfield another chance, and if I'm right, you should be able to see the hints of genius hidden beneath the huge amount of incompetent design which surrounds this game. For a brief bit of background information regarding my experience with Bethesda games, I played and loved Skyrim, Fallout 3, and New Vegas, but found myself wavering when it came to Fallout 4. I think the post-apocalyptic shoot-and-loot formula had just gotten boring for me personally. I was happy to ignore the existence of Fallout 76 as well as Elder Scrolls Online, and by the time Starfield has been released, my faith in Bethesda had diminished to a point where I was happy to skip it altogether. That was until I learned one simple fact that changed my outlook entirely. It was free. On Games Pass at least. With no financial risk, I was more than happy to give this game a try. I booted it up, set up my stream, and began one of the most confusing and boring intros to any game I've ever played. You begin your journey as a dusty, a thankless job for workers who don't have the financial means to be anything else. You're then asked to explore further into the cave system, in which you encounter an unknown, potentially dangerous artifact that fills your minds with visions of the future while altering your biochemistry. Yeah, I don't think Space OSHA would approve of this. After your acid trip, you wake up, walk outside, and get immediately attacked by pirates, which to me cements the job of Dusty as unfulfilling and dangerous labor that only the truly downtrodden would be systematically forced to do. Anyway, Barrett gives you his ship and you... Wait. He gives you his ship. He gives some random Dusty that he's never met before a spaceship. You don't earn it, you don't build it, you don't steal it from pirates, there's no call to action that sets you on your journey. Some guy gives you a ship worth 53,188 credits and single-handedly lifts you out of poverty. It's not that important, but it does set a weird tone for the start of this game that you begin as an inactive character in this story, but then are given free reign to fly across the galaxy doing whatever you want. Also, Barrett mentions that he'll want his ship back, so I wasn't quick to get attached to my first space vessel, which in hindsight feels like a huge missed opportunity, but I will get to that later. You fly your new spaceship to a different location by fumbling through the menus until you activate a loading screen, then land on the planet by fumbling through your menus until you activate a loading screen. You kill 100 pirates while shuffling through the game's basic weapons, and based on this early game gameplay, you might make the same mistake that I did in assuming that combat would be emphasized throughout Starfield. With this in mind, I beat several missions, including the Mantis mission for the dorky-ass Mantis armor, as well as the Razorleaf ship. And I completed Sarah's companion quest, which was admittedly great. Uncovering her past and helping her come to terms with the trauma of her military mistakes that ended up costing people their lives was thoughtfully designed and made her feel like a fully fleshed out companion. I leveled up, hit the skill tree, to make the absolute worst decision I possibly could have: investing in science. My goal was to upgrade the spacesuit design and weapon engineering skills as fast as possible in an effort to have cool weapons and armor at my disposal as soon as possible. In my mind, this was supposed to be the Starfield equivalent of smithing daggers and enchanting them in Skyrim, or unlocking the blueprint weapons in Fallout 3. Little did I know, the grind for crafting would be much more complicated in Starfield than its predecessors ever had been. Let me take you through the process as fast as I can. First, you spend 4 points in the science category. Simple enough, but the starter skills are pretty garbage and generally a waste of points. Then you level weapon engineering, which prompts you to craft weapon attachments to continue down the skill tree. Easy enough, I'll just find a weapon crafting station and I have to research first. Okay, I'll find a research station, fill in the resources, and I don't have the resources. Okay, well, a quick YouTube search later, and I know I can get most of my resources by flying to Titan, going inside Homestead, and buying what I need, or sitting for 3 hours to refresh the stock. What was it I needed again? Fuck. I fly back and forth between the research station and Homestead until I filled in everything in the first weapon engineering slot, now to craft attachments. Where was the weapon station again? Fuck. At this point I wanted a solid base of operations. I built an outpost in South America, filled it with every single crafting station, and got to work crafting the best weapons I possibly. All of my weapons already had better attachments. So I found the 2 cheapest mods and swapped between them until I had met the requirement for the next skill point level up. I did this whole entire process again for each of the levels in both weapon and armor crafting, along with the extra levels you need into the special project skill, and what was my reward? I got to change one of my weapons from burst fire to full auto, and a couple silencers that I never got to use effectively because I'd spent all my points in science instead of stealth. It was at this point that Starfield had lost its luster to me. Lies of P came out and absolutely blew me away, taking my attention from all other games for several weeks. Starfield was left behind feeling like a hollow grind that I wouldn't recommend to anyone, and I'm not really sure what compelled me to return, but I did. And after getting my bearings as to where I left off in my playthrough, and realizing that over 1,000 pounds of my ship's cargo was dedicated purely to carrying the resources I had gathered in an effort to upgrade my kit, I figured it was finally time to figure out the ship building system. I spent hours upgrading the various components, rearranging the layout to better integrate cargo holds, and figuring out the limits of what I could do with the system without totally ruining my mobility. I was loaded with credits at that point, so it was easy to go all out and design to my heart's content, except for the parts that were locked behind the ship design and piloting skill, which required destroying enemy ships to progress in. I'm sure this is a super common complaint, but I had destroyed so many ships at this point in my game, and none of them counted towards the piloting skill because I hadn't unlocked the skill with the skill point yet. I really wish that Bethesda would patch this so that every skill challenge was available at the beginning of the game, and adjust the unlock requirements to reflect that. It's so frustrating to have done something so many times and not have any credit for it. Either way, I now had a ship of my own design, a ship that I had carefully crafted for the specific purpose of carrying a lot more shit to hoard and sell, but not the best ship it could possibly be. With my sights set on unlocking the upgrades to ship design, I went pirate hunting throughout the galaxy, and while I was doing that, something funny happened. All of the pirates I wanted to destroy jumped away from me because they were afraid of the Mantis' ship, but something else funny happened. I began enjoying the quirks of the game. Suddenly, the role-playing aspects of being a cool spacefaring adventurer overshadowed the many faults I had found. Loading screens between planets were now exciting because I never knew what kind of scene I would emerge into when I entered the planet's orbit. Whether it be pirates, quests to accept, merchant vessels, it was all part of the Spaceman RPG experience. I wasn't playing as a Fallout guy in space any longer, I was the captain of my ship. I had once wished that the fast travel system was more streamlined to avoid fumbling through menus and loading screens, but now it wasn't a loading screen, it was a grav jump. And I found it funny that the loading screen and menu system of Starfield is almost universally considered boring, but peak Skyrim and Fallout exploring amounts to walking in a direction for however long until something happens. The difference for me is the RPG element. I could walk in Skyrim for hours as long as it feels like I'm the Dragonborn exploring a fantasy land. And now that my perspective had shifted, I can do the same in Starfield, so long as I feel like I'm the captain of a powerful ship that I can make even more powerful after I hunt down enough pirates. While the rewards of the weapon upgrade system were incredibly disappointing, upgrading my ship was always satisfying. Learning and understanding my ship's weapon systems and targeting systems was rewarding, allowing me to hunt enemy ships with greater lethality and scuttle any vessel worth commandeering and selling. Increasing my cargo hold space allowed me to gather more loot to sell across the galaxy and make me even more rich. Everything about the ship system was unique and interesting and satisfying, and I almost missed out on it because Starfield fails to telegraph to players the main fantasy the game fulfills. With that mindset, I set out to play the game again, but with a new set of ideas to guide my playthrough. I would start with the Bounty Hunter class, which has a starting point into piloting, booster packs, and ship targeting. Each of these skills are important on their own and worth spending at least 1 point into, but they also have the benefit of each residing in the tech skill tree. This means after leveling once and putting a point into security for lockpicking, another very important skill to invest in early, the 4 skill points requirement would be met to unlock the second level of tech, which includes shield systems, payloads, and engine systems. With many useful tech-based skills to invest in, including the skill level ups I got along the way, it was not long before I reached the third row, unlocking the Starship Design skill. The progression through the tech skill tree was efficient and rewarding, leaving the only thing between me and the most powerful ship in the galaxy being the skill point unlock challenges and the money I needed for all the parts I would want. Starting with the piloting skill was hugely beneficial, being that quitting your day job and leaving the poverty planet is immediately followed by an intro into space battles, resulting in 3 free ship kills for the 5 that you need to rank 2. A few missions later, you meet a trio of Varun Him ships in orbit near your objective. Engaging with them is optional, and I had skipped them on my first playthrough because I was not yet comfortable with the ship controls, but now all I saw was 2 more ships to destroy and rank up my piloting, and 1 ship to scuttle and take for myself. I ended up using this ship for the rest of my playthrough, mostly because of those big, voluptuous fuel tanks. The rest of my playthrough was pretty linear from there. I did missions and sold commandeered ships to make money. I used the money to upgrade my ship, making it faster, stronger, harder hitting, with better EM capabilities and with more cargo space, then used it to more easily hunt down enemy ships and further level piloting. The pacing of the gameplay was incredible. Missions sent me further into space, which pushed me into randomly instanced dogfights with stronger and therefore more valuable ships, followed by gunfights in the process of commandeering, as well as gunfights within the mission itself. I would punctuate the action by returning to civilization to sell off all my loot, and spend an extended time in the shipbuilding menus, trying my best to make my ship as cool and efficient as possible. After a long while of indulging in this gameplay loop, I had designed the strongest ship in the galaxy, the MILF Hunter. The whole while I was doing all of that, the facet that streamlined my playthrough the most was the fact that I didn't need to spend a single point of mass in my inventory or in my ship's cargo on resources. By foregoing the crafting perks in the science skill tab, I realized that I could feasibly and easily play the game without using a single item in the resource category. In doing so, I had freed up my inventory to loot every weapon and armor piece I saw, allowing me to spend as little time as possible deciding what I should take and what I should leave behind. And so my final summary and advice after I had played all of this: if you want to enjoy Starfield, invest in the few aspects of this game that work really well. That being the spaceship and the fantasy of being a star captain. All the while ignore the absolute worst aspects of the game, including the weapon upgrades, the spacesuit upgrades, outpost building, planet exploring and surveying, the research table, using the scanner, using the mineral cutter, the pharmaceutical table, cooking, and basically everything in the science skill tab, and carrying any of the hundreds of resource items required to make any of that possible. And you want to know the kick in the balls of it all? The absolute best ship-related skill is called aneutronic fusion, which gives you more units of power in your reactor, which means less fumbling around while in ship battles. It's a master perk in the science skill tab. You've gotta be fucking kidding me. Now, despite all that, at the top of my video I said that I love Starfield, which is true. Playing the way I described is very satisfying, and I've sunk many hours into this game without regret. However, that doesn't stop me from realizing that this game is fucking garbage. The fact that I can tell you with a straight face that you'll spend more time in this game with more enjoyment if you simply ignore large parts of it should be embarrassing for Bethesda. The fact that I can advise you to drop every item in the resource category should be seen as a complete mismanagement of the assets at hand and the time someone spent coding and creating them. It's a real shame this game was released the way it is, because there is genuinely a great game hidden somewhere amongst the heaping pile of ideas and systems that need like 2 more years of development to get right. Bethesda owes it to the version of themselves that used to make great games to get this new IP on its feet. It's sort of the opposite of how I feel about FromSoft's games, where I believe their older games are garbage, and yet they manage to leverage the success of their garbage to figure out what works and what doesn't in order to make incredible games. Bethesda seemingly has forgotten what used to make their games great. So despite my negativity towards the future of Bethesda, I figure it wouldn't hurt to put my constructive thoughts out there for whoever's listening. This is everything I would do in an attempt to fix Starfield. First, I would make the weapon and armor upgrade systems much more rewarding. I think the grind to unlock these tools would be completely worth it if the reward was something huge, like the ability to upgrade your white weapons and armor to rare, then epic, then legendary rarity. It would be a pretty simple fix. Make the first point into the skill unlock all the attachments and mods, but still require their research. Then the second point unlocks a rare skill, upgrading your weapon to rare, next point to epic, last point to legendary. I think the system would definitely need some balancing, and certain perks would be undeniably better than others, but at least the grind would leave you with something exciting, and also allow you to upgrade your whole kit in unique ways that fit your playstyle. Secondly, I would make Gal Bank act as a real bank in-game, but instead for your resources. If you choose to go through the crafting path, then resources become incredibly valuable to you, and you rarely leave them behind. However, that ends up being a huge burden on your carry weight and your ship's cargo weight. This could easily be remedied by utilizing the already established in-game Gal Bank as a bank for your resources. Next, I would flesh out the bad guy options a lot more. It seems like if you take any path, even remotely negative, you end up paying a huge price. Being a pirate means losing access to the main areas of the game, as well as losing the respect of the 4 romanceable companions, and losing the missions associated with their companionships. It's far too high a price to pay when you get very little in return. Having to register a ship before selling it eats most of your profits for pirateering. It would be nice to have a spaceship chop shop that'll take your ill-gotten vessels without having to register them. Next, I would give the game a better intro, with an emphasis on obtaining your ship through active decision-making on your character's part. For example, a DLC expansion set on the rim of the settled systems, colony of pirates, smugglers, and other do-badders. You could be an indentured servant working with your friend under the harsh rule of a pirate captain. You've been secretly attempting to gather the parts for a ship to escape to the settled systems together, but the captain finds out and asks you who's responsible. You can sell out your friend for the captain's favor, resulting in him gifting you the stolen ship parts, setting you on the bad guy path through the campaign, or you can say nothing, resulting in both of you getting beaten, but your friend's wounds are lethal. They give you a key to a secret cache of med packs, starter weapons, armor, and ship parts, and tell you to get out while you still can, make it to the settled systems, and live on for them. You then fight your way to a shipbuilding console and get a short tutorial on how to build a ship, which explains what each part does and the restrictions in their placement. You get to build your ship out of a bunch of garbage basic components in the design of your choosing, which should build a small amount of bond between you and the ship, while still having a huge amount of upgrades in the future, even more than in the base game, being that you're flying space trash instead of some functioning ship some asshole gives you for free. You then fly away and are given the option of returning to the settled systems to play the main game, or staying in the unsettled systems to get revenge for your friend. The campaign could be similar to Skyrim's Dawnguard, being that there would be a good and bad campaign running side by side using the same set pieces and characters to tell both stories. Lastly, you would have to do something about the outpost design and planet surveying exploring thing, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what I could say on that. It's just a blank canvas of content. There's nothing there. If I were to give some kind of constructive comment, I would say that the unexplored, unsettled planets should be ripe with hostile wildlife. Like, you could have it be more of a mini-game to hunt down the alpha creatures and then reskin the Deathclaws, Mirelurks, and Skyrim's dragons as like bosses in the world. Maybe your whole ship crew gets to come with you, making you feel more like a captain and giving more weight to the crew station's stat on your ship. I don't know. I'm just spitballing because this is honestly the most boring and pointless part of the game. Well, anyway, that's about all I've got. Hopefully I've given you some fresh perspective on the game, and hopefully some Bethesda dev gets to see this and gets their creative juices flowing. Add space whores.